Yes, seriously.
All right, we're ready to go. Here it's not. Pretty much everyone. It's doing a good stuff. I'm not doing the carrot here. Maria, good morning, everybody, and welcome along to the council meeting for the 29th of July, 2026. It is going to be a substantial day of heavy lifting, and we have got quite a lot on our packed agenda. So welcome to those who are joining us online today. We are going to kick off the morning with a karakia from Libra.
Tuiaki Runga, Tuiaki Raro, Tuiaki Roto, Tuiaki Waho, Tuia Te Heri Tangata, Karonga Te Po, Karonga Te O, Homie, Hui, Rikiai. Bind us together from above, bind us together from below, bind us together from within, bind us together from without. Bind the ties that unite us as people. That it be heard in the night, that it be heard in the day, join together, gather together, it is done.
Fantastic, thank you. Great choice. We have no apologies this morning, and we are a full house. Although one or two people do not it, so we'll note that when they do. And public forum this morning, Karen Munro, Leasing and Licensing Policy. Karen. Thank you.
So I'm here on behalf of Royal Art Deco, Maniototo. Around 40 Art Deco style buildings were constructed to replace those that were destroyed by suspicious fires in the 1930s. Buildings replaced in the Art Deco style included the Town Hall, hotel, tobacconist, grocery stores, homes and more. The Loamy family of Grandview Private Hotel and Milk Bar was destroyed by a fire, and this was replaced by the Centennial Milk Bar, which was rebuilt in 1948 and closed in 1991. Restoration of the building and establishment of the collection was strongly supported by the Maniototo community. Renfrewley experienced a decline in the 1990s, so District Councillor Edna Makatami, using the Art Deco theme, encouraged businesses and owners and volunteers to restore and repaint buildings. Edna persuaded the Central Otago District Council to purchase the derelict Centennial Milk Bar to save it from being used as fire brigade practice. Art Deco Maniototo Incorporated was formed to lease the dining room and kitchen to house a comprehensive collection of 1930 pieces, mostly donated or loaned by Maniototo families. Now recognised as the only Art Deco museum in the Southern Hemisphere, as declared by UK Art Deco author Colin Hines in an article by Ali Constantine in the Otago Daily Times on the 15th of March 2011. The organisation does not have a formal museum status and therefore cannot access council museum funding. Collaboration with other community groups to enhance the culture viability of Renfrewley created a guided walk for the Art Deco buildings in the town centre with information panels at each site, supported Maniototo Community Arts and Culture Incorporated to gain funding for the Lisa Moser mural, supported Ranfurly 125, providing a start-up fund to celebrate the arrival of the first train into Ranfurly on the 1st of December 1898. Ranfurly 125 kindly donated $5,000 towards our cyclist sculpture. Working to house more of the Eden Hall collection, we'd like to become more involved in housing more of the Eden Hall collection, but this requires further fundraising. The committee cannot progress until the outstanding lease on the building is renewed. 1,500 visitors to date this year, as we're only open 3 days of the week. Visitors came from all around New Zealand, internationally, including US, Canada, the UK and Australia. We collect visitor data, provides insight for Maniototo businesses and support the work of the Information Centre, which is often not open at the weekends. Increased costs will add significant burden to the struggling groups with limited funding opportunities. If these proposed changes are applied to us without adjustment or exemption, the cumulative financial and administration burden will likely force us, the volunteers, to reconsider our ability to continue operating. Community groups are increasingly competing for shrinking funds, and one-off events screw income and should not be considered as part of regular income, as we've helped other community groups raise funds for community projects and events. This skews our annual income. We would be very disappointed to be penalised financially for supporting others. Although Royal Art Deco Manitota is not currently recognised as a museum, it could be reviewed as a public amenity under the Local Government Rating Act 2002 and therefore exempt from rates. Downward financial pressure may be too much for small community groups to cope, which would lead to a reduction in service or closure. We respectfully ask the Council to recognise the unique community value provided by Royal Art Deco Manitota Incorporated, acknowledge the limitation of a small elderly volunteer group with no paid staff, consider exceptions or specialised provisions for groups like ours as allowed within the policy. Exclude one-off events, example the 125 celebration, that skew incomes from rent calculations. Reconsider the imposition of utilities, rates and legal costs on volunteer-run heritage organisations. Ensure policy changes do not unintentionally force community groups to close, leaving empty buildings and weakening the social fabric of our town. Reinstate the clause from the previous policy not included in the reviewed version, which allows council to use an alternative method of calculating rent where applying the standard formula results of an unadjusted outcome. We would like to continue contributing to the vibrity, the heritage and the identity of Ranfurly. We simply need a lease structure that recognises our limitations and support of our ongoing work. Thank you to the Council for giving us this chance to share our perspective. We are grateful for your time and for your commitment to finding a fair arrangement that supports the volunteers who work hard to preserve and strengthen our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? It is a fascinating place to visit. There are so many really interesting things to look
I'd
at.
like to visit next time you come to Manitota for your council meeting.
I highly recommend it. Yes, absolutely. We will keep in touch on that one. Thanks, Karen. Confirmation of minutes begin on page 7. Might have someone make those accurate. Thank you, Tracy. Seconded Sarah. Those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. And then our declarations of interest begin on page 30. A reminder to keep an eye on those and let Wayne know if anything needs to be altered, amended, removed or added. And then we move on to our community board chair update. And this month we have Chair Mark Jessup from Tewikau. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. So I come with good news from the Tevia Valley. I've got 10 pieces of good news for you all. First thing is a resounding thank you very much for the low rates increase, and we do recognise that. A lot of hard work from you guys, and it's most appreciated. And thank you very, very much. I don't know what you're going to do next year. A few stranded overheads and in the full cost of the town hall. However, just to move forwards, that's number one. So that's good news. Second thing is the Town Hall and Recreation Centre, Roxbury Entertainment Centre, is looking forwards now. After 18 months, we've got an architect there, and they're going to do some community consultation next week. So that's looking good, and we're pleased to be moving forwards on that one. The next one down here that I've got is we've got a project on the books called the Alluvial Fans. As you drive through Roxburgh, there's a big bunch of hills there, and there's a whole lot of fans there, and we're in grave danger of them collapsing with next rainfall, which might be tonight or tomorrow or in 40 years' time. So we're in the middle of being engaged with ORC and the council. We obviously, as a council, we don't. There's lesser liability than the ORC, so it's hard for us to drive it because drive these things, you end up putting the bill. So we're desperately trying to, you as a council are desperately trying, we are absolutely interested in what's going on. It's going to have a massive impact on our property values and our insurance values. Next one is the community plan has been completed. Look at this. Fantastic piece of hard work over 2 or 3 years with community input, and Rebecca's done a lot of hard work on it. So we're really pleased to have this. The previous one was 2011, I think. So it's a big update. What it gives us is a springboard and a platform for other projects to start. Community board isn't in a position to actually undertake and spend money necessarily on these projects, but we can raise the flag, advocate for it, start things, and try and get some other people undertaking various projects. As a community board, however, we have picked 3 big ones. 3 big ones are community housing, and we've got Hayden Smith and Jill Booth are on that little project. Try and raise the banner, because it was mentioned in here a lot. Raise the banner that we're really, really keen to get some more community housing going down in the Tevere Valley. Secondly, community gymnasium. We don't have a gymnasium. The nearest gymnasium to us is in Alexandra. So researching that. And the third thing is community health services. People keep saying we want more health, we want more health. There isn't a central point of management sort of responsibility for that, given that there is a doctor's surgery, there is a medical services trust that I'm on that is the landlord, but just to be a central point to let people know that we do actually have integrated health services. So I'm working on that project. Next one is the spatial plan. Is a project that was done in 22-23, and it was approved in 24 and 25 by the council and community board, but then unfortunately Big Brother in Wellington came along and said, please don't progress any more spatial plans. So this is sitting in limbo with Quentin's group just waiting for something to happen. And so it's been sitting in that place for 18 months now, I think, and nothing's happened. So that's quite a frustrating thing. But anyway, that body of work is sitting there. And the next step is just to add it to Plan Change 19. And it's been written so that it can be added, but unfortunately it hasn't happened yet. But that's okay. The next one, a shining light for us, is mining. There's a lot of talk about mining, but we've already had mining for the last 2 years. And so the Millers Flat mine's going really well, and they're looking at expansion. What is interesting, though, is that when we have a public meeting about the mining expansion that we're going to do around Millers Flat, we got 50 or 60 people come to the meeting, which is great compared to the population of Millers Flat, but in about 3 of them from Roxburgh. Conversely, when the mining company said they wanted to expand up in Coal Creek, which is up near the dam, near the big Roxburgh Dam, there's about 150 people turned up at 7 o'clock at night at a -4 night, and about 2 of them from Millers Flat. So it shows you that the impact of something like this is hyper-local. And there was nobody from Alexandra or Cromwell. So it's hyper-local interest, these things, that the people are interested in. And if it doesn't hurt them, they don't worry about it. They're not worried about the greater good. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just showing you that as an example. Anyway, it's a shining light. And so, but what they're planning on doing down there now at Coal Creek, they bought an old consent. They bought an old company that had a mining resource consent from 2016. They've got till August 2026 to exercise it, which happens to be next week. Otherwise, it lapses. So they bought that company. They're going to start doing that mining and underway with that because they've already had the consents there. Interestingly, part of their plan is to move State Highway 8. This ain't a small undertaking, and it isn't with small returns. It's $7,000. Imagine what it's going to cost them to move State Highway 8. But if that's a shining light, then there's a burning sun waiting to rise, which is Lake Onslow. And if that goes off, it will go off. The consortium have attracted 3 new shareholders that have contributed sufficient funds to progress the substantial preparation and the engineering. So, you know, they're serious, these guys, of going to this stage, and they've got the money to do it, which is fantastic. We're getting through it. 7th, amalgamation. That's your problem, not mine. But sitting from the sideline, all the people in the area just say, no, we don't want it. We're going to complain. We're going to We're going to vote against it. We're going to go on strike. You know, we're going to stamp our feet. Obviously, they're not going to do any of that. They can't do any of that, but because they don't understand that it's being forced upon us. And it is pretty scary. And what I can see is that it's going to potentially, if we don't manage it right, we're going to lose to being masters of our own destiny. I've seen it in Queenstown, lived in Queenstown for 20 years, and I saw the disdain with which the Queenstown Council treated Kingston and treated Glenorchy and Wanaka until Wanaka grew, and certainly Arrowtown. They treated them with disdain. They had one site in their mind, and that was Queenstown, and look what they've done to it. And if we join with them, then you're going to have to be really, really careful about how you create some Chinese walls that we do this and they do that, and maybe just have one holding company at the top, which makes the government happy, which looks after us, a few admin type things. I don't know, but the other alternative of having our rates go to move the rubbish dump in Dunedin and fix the seesaw in the main street of Dunedin are just as unpalatable. But I think that they'll have more critical mass and even more people and more to push us out of the way. So yeah, please be very, very careful. And there won't be any savings from IT systems and stuff like that. I tell you, the amount of money you'll spend in the first 5 years in migrating and training will far exceed any benefits in the first few years. Getting there. Now we've got no ward reserves. As an example of what we're going through in terms of this amalgamation of councils, we went through it over the last few years with districtisation. The result of that is that as a community board, we've got lesser and lesser reserves, and certainly there's no money going into the reserves. If you parallel that with what might happen if we join with Queenstown Council, all of a sudden our income might get diluted into one big pot that we don't have our hands on. There's good reason for going through districtisation, whether we agree or whether we don't, it's happened, but the result is that we don't have any income stream to create our reserves. Therefore, one project that I'm working on is to try and create a repository of some monies, such as a foundation for the Teviot Valley. So there is a place, but if people want to donate some money, if there was some money coming from Onslow or the mine or some other place, we could have a pot that is ours in the Teviot Valley for future investment opportunities down there, and that we don't have to always keep coming to this table or to Queenstown or to Dunedin, even worse, to try and get some money. So that's a project that I'm working on very slowly. Another good news item is the Miller's Flat Domain. That is nearly all finished. We've got the pickleball, the netball, the pump track, the playground, netball and the tennis, and we've got the basketball almost sorted, and we're considering now doing a flying fox just to finish it off. On Saturday, we've got the annual seven-a-side. It's been running 124 years. We're having 100 rugby teams and 40 netball teams, 4,000 players and supporters. So it should be huge. But we're very worried this will be the last time that we're sheltered from wind and rain from it because of the possible demise of the Miller's Flat Pavilion. Miller's Flat Pavilion's been there for a long time. We want to keep it. It was voted to keep it, to divest it to our group, and the CEO said they sell it for $1. Now, unfortunately, there's some little things coming in the way to say that it's a dangerous obstruction and has to be removed because it's in the way of the two neighbours at either side who might want to walk there rather than walking down to the end of their section, because there's this road at the end. You've got all the neighbours, you've got the domain, and you've got the street. What's being said is that these neighbours may want to walk across that domain at the back to get to the back of their section rather than walk down their section. And it just doesn't make sense. I've talked to the neighbours, they say, we've got no intention of walking down there, climbing a fence to get to our back section, because it's on a paper road that goes to nowhere. Both ends of the paper road end up at the neighbours. Anyway, we're going to have quite a big discussion about that tomorrow at the community board. But there is some thought that it'll get knocked over and pulled down, and the cost of that will be $120,000 to our ratepayers, and there'll be just nothing left there. Absolute gap. There's nothing wrong with the building. We've got trust monies to to give it a 50-year makeover. It's had no maintenance in 30 years. That's why it needs a 50-year makeover. We've got trust monies to do it. We've got a committee keen to run it and manage it. And the building is in good shape. There is some concern that the building isn't. Here is council's report, building inspection report. Here it is. I've highlighted in green. I'm sure you can all read it. But what it says is, this is the summary. Structurally, the whole of the complex, the roof, the walls, the subfloor are in sound condition. And the only thing needs is two wooden, out of the 14, 15 windows, 2 are wooden and they're in the back southwestern toilets. They need fixing. That's part of our budget. So hopefully we can see a way to get that fixed and get it usable for the community. That is that. The good news from the south. Sunny south.
Fantastic report, Mark. Questions?
Yeah, I got one. You said in your just long-term plan, you had affordable housing become a big issue. Yes. Surely when you have 2 gold mines and potentially a dam and other growth, the Roxburgh Hydro Village was built because it was accommodation. Is there not a responsibility on some of the business investors that might be coming there to actually try to house their own staff? And therefore, if you wanted affordable housing, is it council's role to provide staff accommodation for a multi-million-dollar corporate events?
Agree with you. And the mine at the moment have probably bought 8 to 10 residential properties that they're getting people in. They've also created what they call dormers, which are male accommodation or people's accommodation. They've built many of those. So they are doing their bit for that. But the second thing I would say is that that's exactly what I've just been saying. Where would that money come from? And if it went into a pot that was run by Queenstown or Dunedin, how are we in the Teviot Valley going to get it? So that's what I was talking before about a foundation that is the Teviot Valley's foundation. And it's something that statutorily the mine in Onslow will be required to make certain payments or royalties for certain activities. But what we want to do is have another place where they can put some more money into another pot. If that other pot was give it to the council, they're just going to go, look, we're paying royalties to the national government. We're not giving any to the council now. But if there was one that was a very local valley foundation, I think we might make some progress on that very thing.
Another question.
100%.
Another question. We'll look at it for elderly persons housing later on in the afternoon. Is there an appetite for medical set up to be interested in being involved in elderly person housing?
Yes, is the yeah. If I had to say yes or no, the answer is yes. How we achieve that, we don't know. We had a meeting with, I've been to many medical services trust meetings. Medical Service Trust is the landlord of the rest home and the medical centre. They are looking ways to expand. We said to achieve this, we're going to need $20 million. Where we're going to get that from? We started talking about it. We don't have an answer, but that was the vision. And yes, to have a continuum of housing between the rest home, which after the rest home basically die. But before that, there's a continuum of living at home or living in some independent assisted living, or maybe some living that is next to the rest home because there are some services or some sort of Abbeyfield thing. So
I
yes.
guess the answer is yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, fair enough. Sarah, did you?
No, it's the elderly person. So
Trace.
I'm good.
Thanks, Mark. I'm absolutely loving this enthusiasm about the Teviot. I think it's absolutely fantastic. The alluvial fans.
Yeah.
Is the ORC listening?
I think so.
I've been following up. We were told there'll be an interagency meeting between CODC, ORC, NZTA in June. Followed up on that. Hasn't come to anything. They are working on options, timelines for consideration and consultation out to 2027. Basically, wheels are turning very, very slowly. Very good at identifying a problem, consulting on a problem, not very good at
Coming up with a practical
mitigating
solution.
what the solution would be. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And
Disappointing would be my summation of RRC's response to this.
okay. The spatial plan side of things, I accept that the government has put a stop on all of that. When you can, hopefully next year, when that starts hitting off again, are you confident that what's been done, barring any minor tweaks, is ready to go again?
Great plan.
Okay.
Yeah, it says they want to put 500 sections and houses in the town for growth over the next 30 years. It's a great plan.
Yeah, and if I'm hearing in relation to mining and across those two meetings, is the general feeling supportive or not? Or is it balanced or?
Supportive. I mean, the loudest people are the negative people, but there's like, they're 1%. you know. No, it's generally like, and particularly what they've done in Mills Flat's amazing. You should see what they're doing. That you can see paddocks appearing now, which were 30-metre holes.
Okay.
Like, yeah, it's amazing.
And my final question is just taking note of your point on in relation to amalgamation. And obviously there's still a huge body of work in relation to that. And you hit the nail on the head, if I heard you correctly, that it's about education of people. I'd really love to hear how you have got it, you, especially from anywhere around the district, but from your side of things, how we keep that education piece for people to understand the process. So other than believing what they see on Facebook, because that's not necessarily the source of all truth.
That's where they're getting their truth from.
Yeah.
So to maybe, an old style advert in a newspaper, in a newspaper on the, we have a Teviot bulletin, which is a sheet that goes out to 1,800 people. Maybe, a decent page in that, which sets out where we're at, which might change, of course, but, people tend to read in our valley. Older people, they tend to get the newspaper. So I think that the Teviot bulletin was the way to go, trying to get information out to us.
Thank you.
Excellent, Mark. And I note that the work on the spatial plan ideally will be a lift and shift into the regional spatial planning with a distinctly Teviot flavour when we get to that next phase, because I think that is really important work that the Valley has spent a long time on. And I really love your hyper-local interest note, because I think that's really important for our discussions today. When something affects people in an area, they want to know and have a say. And when it's 20 or 30 k's down the road, they are often less interested. So the nature of our communities, but love your enthusiasm. This was a fantastic report.
It's a great community to be in. Come on down.
Any chance we'll have that Flying Fox by Saturday? Any chance we got the Flying Fox by Saturday when we're there?
No.
Aren't you working quick?
Pretty much everybody.
Can't wait. We need to move on to community vision and experience, and the first item is the commercial swim school, which because Sarah's going to take it. I was going to say Tracy, but it'll be Sarah taking it. And Wayne, if you can just note, I'm not participating in this one. The kids are in a swim school. And Martin.
In that case, 26.9.3. He's doing really well though. You leave him alone. He's a shark.
He does breathing.
He can do 25 metres. Commercial swim schools, please.
Thank you.
Sensible people at the end.
I'm playing the role of Carly Lipinski today, which is a lot of fun. So Carly and I workshopped this one with you on the 10th of June. I won't go through the changes we made. We made all the changes you asked us to. There were two takeaways we were asked to go and look into. One was to extend the hours of the swim school, and the second was looking at the lane hire rate. On extending the hours, we met with the swim school operations manager. She's going to look into options, but she did stress that it's really difficult to do because at the moment they're structured around staff requirements. So extending those into the evening would require the hiring of more staff or changing those. And the second was the lane hire rate. There's lots of opportunities to change and increase that. But after quite a long talk with finance, Carly decided she was most comfortable to leave it where it is for 12 months, see the level of demand she has for it at that rate, and come back to you to decide where it should be set with that additional information. If you are to approve this policy as is in those resolutions today, it would be approved for 3 years, but she could still come back in 12 months and have that conversation with you, and we'll note that on her work program.
David, anything to add? Sure.
I'll just change recommendation C to authorises the CEO if you do go up that route rather than the aquatics manager. Yeah.
She'll be disappointed.
Yeah.
It's always she's not here. She's sorry.
Yeah, no, apart from that, I think it's been good for all of us to just have a bit of a stop and reflect. The swim school has evolved a lot over the last 5 years, and we have had 2 or 3 inquiries come from other commercial areas, as you know. So I think part of this, like any new policy, will be making sure we keep communication open with the commercial and non-commercial providers and work through it together.
And will we get a report on that at any point.
Yeah, if you'd like, what are you sort of thinking at
No, just it'd be good to look and just see what the uptake was maybe. And
12 months in or something? Too far away?
We mentioned that 12 months possible report, so include it in that.
can we get that? So that can come back, we can have a look at how it's going, any tweaks that.
Would you like the resolution? Really happy for us to write it.
No, to need it.
Okay. You can pop a 12-month performance report in as a resolution if you'd like.
Yeah.
Cool.
Clear.
You
And
happy
then
with
it will
that?
be a reminder as well.
Yeah.
Can you put that in place? Lee?
And the possibility of increasing that fee as well.
Well, that comes under fees and charges every year though, wouldn't
It
it?
does,
With
it will
the,
be triggered in every long-term plan fees and
every-
charges discussion.
Yeah, okay.
Right, anything else?
And to try get that past David without him looking at it.
Can you put those up for us, Wayne? So we can make sure.
Let's change that to.
Oh, yeah, and we want a recommendation D. Brings back a report.
Yep.
The 12 months operation.
You must just noted the name of the policy is slightly different to recommendation B. I will make sure that they are the same. I'll use the one in the resolution when we publish.
Okay, including the new recommendation D, what HD up there, is everybody happy with what's on the screen? Any more questions? Anybody like to move that? Bob? Second, Cheryl?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you, Carly. Multiple balances. Right, we have 15 minutes scheduled, Bex, for a conversation.
Minutes.
The start timer, please. 26.9.4 Cromwell Town Centre, which we are now calling the CBD.
Yes.
Right, David, 15 minutes, go Bex.
Morena, firstly, I take the report as read. The purpose of the report in front of you is to provide direction on how best to progress the Cromwell Town Centre, now known as the Cromwell CBD. This project has been around since 2008. To date, we've done a lot of work. We've spent significant time, money, and resources to get to where we are. Previous work that we've done to date includes the master plan, economic assessments, growth projections, transport investigations, planning and community engagement. We have noted community feedback since 2008 has focused on looking for a more attractive and vibrant town centre, better public spaces, future-proofed civic and community facilities, improved parking access, and that the town centre actually reflects what the community is looking for.
I'll add to that as well, just with these reports and bringing them up via the community board to council, is to just make sure we check our alignment as we go forward, make sure that we're working as close as possible with governance to staff. And so these recommendations have come from the community board. For your discussion. So.
Question, not comment. Chris?
Yep, I've got some concerns with how this is progressing, and I did indicate that at the workshop the other day.
Yep.
At our walk around in the meeting, there were some things that we put to you, and that seems to have had a departure from that. Is one thing. The master plan done in 2018, 2017 2018. That hasn't, that needs to be, in my mind, updated. Obviously, I'm just one person around the table, because even though I don't live in Cromwell, Cromwell's a very different place to what it was then. And I'm not sure that the 2026 community can look at the 2018 and then move forward from there. So I think that's quite a significant piece of work that will need to be done. There is some things that I think need to happen, but I guess to ask questions, which I'm meant to do, sorry, rather than statements. Sorry, Sarah. What involvement had planning and community engagement had in relation to this project so far?
In its entirety over the last 17 years, we're just in this little.
No, more so in more recent, within the last 6 months.
Ticked it off again.
Yeah.
So I would say from a planning point of view, we have the project steering group that meets right now, we're meeting every week, but then we have an internal working group that we've had 3 meetings with now, just keeping them across where we're heading. And I think that's where some of the notes in there around spatial plan and, holds on plan changes and stuff for council have come to us, but we haven't really progressed that too far there with planning or anything like that. And then I guess community engagement, is your question around how have we communicated this with the community? Have we had drop-ins, or is it just?
The 2018 community is very different from now, and the community engagement piece is, what does our community today, looking forward to 20, and I'm thinking 2056, what does that look like? And what it did look like back then is not what it's going to look like now. Our community is significantly different. So I'm just, for me, I think planning and community engagement need to be the drivers of this from the ground up, as opposed to it being driven from a property perspective. That's my concern.
And if I may, when we're talking planning, we're turned to the planning function under the RMA type concept. So we do know with the regional deal and with the change in the RMA that we're going to have to do a sub-regional spatial plan, and we're going to have to do a regional spatial plan. As part of that, the Maniatoto, Cromwell, Alexandra, Teviot, those ones where they are adequate enough or not in your particular case, they will all have to be done or redone. So, and there is a timeline from passing the legislation to us having to have those spatial plans completed by. So,
but that's a broad piece of work. We're talking about the Cromwell Town Centre here.
I know, but the spatial plan and the RMA plan will determine the height changes of buildings and all that, because that's where it all has to come into that piece of legislation to actually us to enact it, because we can't change our district plan. And the work we did in 2018 reflects what our rules are now. Through story, of course, that makes no sense, but we can only change that through a spatial planning new RMA reform, which
hasn't come in, but we've been given a whole lot of information and fancy diagrams that now don't represent what planning actually has got in the background. So I feel like there's a piece of the puzzle that's missing. And this feels to me like it's being rushed. And we're not talking small change here. We're talking significant amount of money. And it's just, I don't feel that it is appropriate the way we're heading down this road.
I mean, our problem right now is that we can't change the plan. So we can't reflect 3 stories. So if we were to wait
next year,
well, legislation will come in, and then there's a timeline for us to work through. Then there's a whole process to approve it. But taking your point on board, and I suspect this is the council, is that, in the recommendations, it can be that, we are to make sure that it is tied into the sub-regional spatial plan or the regional spatial plan, wherever we land. Because that is a body of work we have to do.
I'm not disagreeing with that. What I'm saying is that at the moment, this process does not seem to be, it's a planning process being led by a property team in real estate. That's how, real estate agents, that's how it feels looking from where I'm sitting, looking in. And I think that, we've got a huge amount of really, really significant work that's coming our way. And stuff like even stuff we've got on our agenda today that is going to shape our district quite differently going forward. And look, we've got growth, we're staring down the barrel of rates increases, all these things. And I think that this project, there's certain things that are really important to happen, but I think some of the stuff needs to be paused, pending some of the other things that are coming out of central government and some of the significant decisions we're having to make. That's where I think.
I agree with Tracy that there are significant changes since we did the Cromwell Master Plan in 2018. But we did go back to the community in 2021 when we asked them in the long-term plan, do you want to do the mall or the hall? And they said, we'll do both, please, and please be ambitious. So we do have a steer that is a little bit more up to date, recognising a lot has shifted since 2021 as well. I think some of the diagrams and lovely pictures of what it could look like have become a little bit of a distraction from what council's role is, which is where do the roads go, where do the pipes go, what is the height limit, and that maybe that has muddied the view a little bit of what the levers are that we control, because it's not up to me to say where is Kmart, where is a coffee shop, does it sell bagels or scones? Like, that's not our role at all. And where trees are planted and that sort of thing, how do we enable that town centre to be the best it can be, not where do we put individual projects. But I would be quite keen, if possible, to hear from either Charlie as the chair or you, Sarah, on that project steering group, because you guys have been meeting weekly, I think, and with the team and progressing that. So, Charlie?
From the last meeting, we've sort of intimated to staff that we would like to see a more open approach done publicly to gauge the feeling of that, and also with developers or private enterprise or business owners to see, get some input from them on what needs to be going into this town centre. I think one of the main concerns that I've got about the whole thing is we're talking about whether we're talking about a commercial centre or are we talking about a community centre? And where do we go with either? I think we've spent a lot of time chewing the fat on plans of how it can look. And really we should be responsible for horizontal infrastructure and enabling whatever development comes along, and that's what we're trying to achieve.
I think from just at the community board perspective into that, the diagrams that we've been presented with those colours was a look to the future, as to, like, the master plan is still relevant in that the people that have that real attraction to the mall, or for most of them, they're still there, they're still relevant. The newer people don't have the history attached, they just want something functional. And I think that's fair to say as a broad brush approach, that people coming into the community don't have that attachment to the mall as it is and look at it and think, don't even bother, do something else. We kind of sit in between that, I think, would be about right. We've looked at it for a long time as how can we fix the mall, and looking at that circle of buildings that we own, a little bit of the paving, a few of the buildings, and this iteration has realised it's actually needs to be bigger than that, and council does not have the ability or the appetite to do that ourselves with our money, with our project team. That is not what's happening. So the change that's happened here is actually that we've gone up and outside of that and said, right, how do we enable with plan changes and with the rules and with road realignments and all the rest of it, how do we enable third parties to come in here and do this for us, but we control that. So those plans are kind of, that's just the steering as to, if we had an unlimited pot of money, how would we rebuild something in Cromwell that was where the fruit is, because that's what the tourists come and see. That brings the community together because it's social hub where you bring all the people together and all of these things fit nicely, but we get control of it. It isn't to the level of we're going to build a museum here, we're going to build a library here and put a shop here. But it does look a bit like that when you look from the outside, I think. But our conversations have definitely been about how do we steer this? How do we block out a piece of land and say it would be our future perfect town is the lake, the fruit, the playground, whatever. where do we want these things to go and how do we enable it? So we've looked at, can we get a public-private partnership where actually we get our library built for us, because we've got land that's offered as a public for sale, and they go and build a mini mall or build whatever they decide on that piece of land that we sell them. But the condition is that then they build a building for us that's got a houses library. That's as far as we've got. We're not committing money and saying we want to build a new library and we want to build a.
Put it into the long-term plan, which has been presented to us now. They're saying we need money. The question is, we want money to go in. And then the moment you present something to the community, the community is going to have an expectation that certain things are going to look. And that's not where we've got. We've also, we've all sat around this table and charged the rest of the business, as in the rest of council, to make cuts, to do this, to try and find savings. And to me, what we're doing here is spending more money. And not that I'm not saying that it doesn't need to be done, and I 100% agree with, think big. However, I feel like there's a real big piece missing, and I think there needs to be better engagement with the planning team and the community engagement team to drive it properly. And I'm not seeing that, and I just don't think that we can make a decision based on that today, other than the key aspects that can kick that start of the project off.
First key aspect, I think, is the realignment of narratives.
Yeah,
agreed. So there's
Once we've done that,
parameters.
yeah, that's right. That enables, the rest of the thing to follow on, doesn't it?
Yeah. But the rest of it's got to be included in amongst that.
Yeah, I know, but we can't, for example, we're looking at 3-story buildings, for example, which are not allowed under the district plan. So we can't actually say, yes, we're going to put a 3-story building there, because we can't. Physically can't do it.
No, so this has got to go forward to a change in the district plan, so to allow some new ideas and some new thinking in there. And
but in the meantime, we can actually do the first step, and the first step is the realignment of that road, because then you've got many options. You can actually develop around that road, you can develop behind it, in front of it. You can do whatever development you want once that district plan's changed.
Yeah, but in amongst that, you've got to include the northwest and that bow tie area in that district plan.
That's what I mean, because the bow tie is one side of it, and the northwest precinct is the other side of it.
That planning piece.
Yeah.
Just watched the workshop in that last week. I was seriously concerned last week watching that. Felt like I was on the horse, and felt like the horse was getting ready to bolt big time. And I feel like sitting here today, we've had a bit more information come through last night, so thank you. But we've got the bridle in hand, and we need to give it a good tug to refocus this from this table and where we want to see it going. Because I get that the recommendations are coming from the community board, and of course they're going to be very ambitious in what they want for their town, and that's theirs. But we've got to look out for Central Otago here. So I am concerned, in your point, that as a council we're sending a message to go in one direction around the numbers that have been presented to us for future budgets, and then this is turning around and telling you to go in a different direction. I also worry, not worry, but I think it needs to be managed and considered the optics of this for the rest of Central Otago, when they're being told there's nothing, or there's no money for this and no money for that in their community. So not denying it's an important piece of work, and it's been kicked around for a long time, and we need to do something, but I think we need to just be mindful of those two things. Managing the optics of this is I think is going to be an issue if you put it in the long-term plan, and the rest of Central Otago will have an opinion on it. But the big thing for me is, we've still got a handle on this horse, so let's pick a refocus into it and make sure we're crystal clear on where it goes.
I just wonder if that 3-year work program that ties into enabling and preparing is actually where we were putting our focus, and a big part of that is going to the long-term plan as a consultation, and it's in that additional paperwork, full community consultation through the long-term process, actually engaging with planning to make the necessary changes to support mixed-use development. That's a priority. Those road corridors are a priority. That's quite a lot to be biting off in the meantime. Probably where we come a little bit more unstuck, I guess, is some of that stuff around concept design. Is that our bag? Or are we saying, here is a piece of land? It's actually the private market that tells us what is going to be the best fit for that piece of land. And that maybe we are not putting a lot of effort into what buildings go where, but I think as Sarah pointed out, we also need to acknowledge the land that we hold, we need to make sure is available for future use. Not in the next 3 years, probably, but at some point we're going to need to expand our library in Cromwell. We don't want to be selling all of the prime pieces of real estate that we currently own. Some of that we might be looking at different options for our community. And having a strategy for that is going to be important.
And I think that's where those, like the diagrams of the purple, that probably looks further ahead than it is, but that's what we were trying to, we don't want to sell everything off and then go, oh, we could have put our stuff there. So it's making sure we're doing it best and holding it rather than going out and building it first, I think.
But if we're trying to attract, some sort of private investment, if you like, to this area, surely one of the things that we've got to do is to say, this is where we want the civic centre, if you like, and the library and so on to be. We don't have to actually plan it. We don't have to design it. But should we not actually be saying, this is where we want the hub to be, if you like? Because
There now.
yeah, I know.
Not a centre or anything, that's the problem. Like it's the far
Getting
side
into
of
the,
the.
you're getting into something that as I said before, you're missing the planning piece. That's the bit that I'm really concerned. There's a big chunk in the middle.
Yeah.
And it's not that I disagree that things look really amazing on those designs. That's not I think that looks, all those things are going to be, that's the exciting piece at the end. There's a real chunk in the middle that needs to be carefully considered. And that's the bit that I'm concerned at, that we are jumping ahead before we've actually nailed down that bit in the middle. The boring stuff.
We're not talking about actually designing every building, are we? We're just saying that ideally this is.
Planning so that those changes are able to build what we see as being realised there is all work.
I mean, could we,
Important that we say there is going to be the civic centre.
Yeah.
That actually is important because that will determine where people would want to put a hotel versus where they would want to put retail versus,
Absolutely.
which will be their bag, but will be a factor in decision making for private capital.
That is up to us too.
But then also we've talked around and round about the actual existing part of what's there now and how that looks. What's going to be, potentially as much as, there's quite a few views around this table in relation to how much money gets spent on that and how it looks and Where's the piece? We've heard that that the private property holders are really willing to work with us and do that. We haven't seen anything that actually gives us something to move forward just with the piece that we already have got.
But we've been around for years and years and years on that.
Yeah, but at what point do we need to push that as well as, and this is part of that.
Probably have flogged that horse till it's
I think as
dead
well,
on its feet.
just to remind the table that there is nothing in the long-term plan for this at all.
It's a
Currently the
zero.
budget's zero. So the point of this is to decide what goes in and what level of work planning, what level of involvement do we want people in this. And so I think just important that just hearing, what's bolting and things, one of the things that's been really important to us is to make sure that there's not too long between drinks on these conversations, because it is a big thing for the district. It is, another big project, and whether it's our money involved or not, it'll have a lot of investment.
If we signal to move that road, there's businesses that sit on the current Murray Terrace that then are affected and that. So we don't want to just say, we're going to realign the road and then leave your business stranded here with no plan. Like, I think it's our responsibility to
Transparency
do
as well.
that from the back end as well. Stu, if you have a question.
Good morning, Peter. Your comments about the spatial and planning, we may have to go through another community plan, a spatial plan for Cromwell. Is that, have I picked that up? And
We have to do by law. You have to do at the moment under the new RMA that's coming in, a regional plan. Under the regional deal, we've signed up to do a sub-regional plan with QLDC and ourselves. That work's actually already started at a regional level.
Yeah.
And because we have to get ahead of the curve, within that, they'll be looking at quite a lot of detail around our communities of interest, where our towns are, what do they need to enable. For instance, it could be on major arterials. They might say 6 stories is where we should, that's the sort of thing that the spatial plan is looking at.
That's the most important part of this And when do we know that?
Oh, well, I mean, the timeline's pretty clear. It used to be, I think it was within 9 months. There's no planners here.
And actually online.
Oh, Anne's online. Oh, well, geez, Anne can answer that question. Anne,
No, she doesn't want to answer it.
You said she muted and voted off.
Sorry. The spatial plan, oh, sorry. Did you want me to? Yeah, so we've started the early stages of working on the spatial plan at the moment. The way the original bills were drafted, it was 18 months from enactment. So it's about 18 months from September this year. The new select committee report has given us another 9 months, I think, which is probably the 3. So it's probably 2 years. We've got 2 years to deliver it, and that's an Otago-wide spatial plan. And it really is a key document to where we grow. And so it's going to determine where that future zoning is, what infrastructure is required. It's quite a big piece of work. And even doing 2 years is optimistic. So that's the time frame, but we will be hitting the ground running. We've already started preliminary. We've got an interim spatial planning committee made up of councillors, as you're aware, and we will be hitting the ground running. We've already started data gathering and things like that, so we'll try to get this as fast as we can. So we are going to be working on this in the next 6 to 12 months. We will be working on all of this. Where does it go? What does it look like? Type questions. I'm not sure if that's helpful or not, but.
Yeah, well, to me, it's like we've got to get that half pot right before we can do a lot of this other thinking. We're going to have to 4 levels of 4 stories or 5 stories or 3 stories. I mean, I won't use my.
but there's obviously things we can do.
Yeah.
The straightening of the road is.
Yeah. And I guess that's it. As long as we get, I'm sort of getting that the structure has to be right at the start, because it's a 100-year thing we're doing, not a 3-year deal, not a 30-year plan, all the dreamy stuff. It's going to change the shape of Cromwell retail middle of the town as much as the gold dredges going up the Clutha 100 years ago did. So, and while it is a race, I think, and that's a concerns I would have with the Cromwell Community Board. And while they're aspirational, it's not a race. But we've got to get it right from that really start.
Not a race, but it's been going a bloody long time.
It's not, and you know, and if we make decisions later in the day with a new entity, what do we have? Do we have offices? What do we do? How big does it get? And do we want to make it big? But, you know, I just want to clarify that, because a spatial plan could be a chance. We definitely get the height elevation done and completely change it. And that's going to be, if Anne's right, that could be 18 months, 2 years to get that. But there are things we can do. But, you know, I do agree that stamping its foot, and as councillors, well, be the staff, it's their project. We've got lots of projects on this compared to our own one, to make sure that we are up to speed with it and get every part of it right. And, you know, that I didn't know, even Tony Lime out the other day about the light levels, and no idea that it was only limited to 5 metres or whatever it was, 10 metres. So, you know, we've got to make sure we're carried on this trip as well, or else the decisions will get muddly.
Yeah, I think Anne's point is actually really, really important. And I take what Tracy is saying, that we really need to wait to a certain extent. In the meantime, we carry on with the road, because obviously that makes Cromwell look completely different. You've got the bow tie, which you can agree or not agree. I personally think it's a barrier to getting into Cromwell. I believe that the town centre has been blocked, and I think that's an issue that is further down the track. But until we know what we can and can't actually put there, then I think we have to be mindful about jumping ahead and then doing what they've done before, is create a town. It doesn't suit. And it doesn't suit. The only problem I've got is that its current condition is so poor, the ground, you know, the piles are so bad. What do we do in the meantime with our community, who are still going to say, if we do put things on hold to a certain extent and allow the plan to go continue on its process, there'll be a lot of people still very unhappy with the condition of and something has to be done about it.
People who will actually trip over paving slabs and
That's what I'm saying. So I appreciate that this is a big piece of work and it is. I think, like you say, I think there's an element missing here. So that the decisions are made and they're informed decisions for the long term and freeing up that, straightening the road and freeing up that part of the northwest part of the town will make it look completely different. But we do have to deal, we're talking about the long-term plan, there's got to be some money in there to make it safe for people to walk around the current more.
But that was allocated first. So how do we tidy that up then maybe?
Yeah,
We
just-
need to pull that out as a separate piece.
We can bring that back as part of the LTP, as that comes back. And I guess one of the things you're sort of talking about is, yes, I maybe talking on part of the ESG here is where our thoughts are of this next chunk, this next 3 years. There's about things like road realignment and planning and the community engagement about what does that need to look like, who goes where, how do we create a really good mixed use town centre, and I don't sort of see us turning any other dirt unless, we get some realignment until after that work has happened. It's just really plain and simply in my mind, that sort of summation.
Could I just ask, is the road realignment is definitely happening? We don't even know if that's happening, so it's.
Having conversations around funding and a report to council around the funding implications of that. So we've done design and we've done test pit and everything like that. So we've got a design packet ready to go. The question now stems to funding. And so we're just working through that and having conversations with our funding partner around any support there. So a report will come to council in August regardless of that, but we're just trying to narrow down the actual share of funding.
So can I just say that this is premature? Because we don't know that road is going to go ahead yet, and it makes a difference to what we're talking about here. So in a way, it would be better to know that the road is going to change and is going to, we've got the funding for it, it is going to happen, and then you can start talking about the rest of it. At the moment, we're basing this on that road going forward. Right.
I've got a potential, in the interest of, we are limited on time, and I think that we do have some resolutions that we could amend to this to make it, because one of the resolutions is that approves that a shortlisted set of options report back to council for informing the long-term plan. So this is not our last bite at the cherry, but from what I'm hearing, actually, when we talk about A, receives the report and accepts the level of significance, B, we do endorse the progression of the Cromwell Town Centre project in line with our previous direction and council workshop with focus on Northwest Precinct. And then C, we actually strip out those high level designs. We are going into an exceptionally constrained long-term plan period. There is not going to be money for everything that we want to put in there. There is a priority that is horizontal infrastructure, that is the planning aspect, and that is the roads. And that's what I want to see, I think, in that resolution, not the high level concept designs of what goes where. We've got to get those basics right first. And that's probably all we're going to have money for in this next 3 years. If that's C was then something around approves the development of regional spatial planning, horizontal infrastructure and roadways to progress into the long-term plan for public consultation. Because that's then going to take that 2-year period that Anne spoke about with landing the RMA and then landing the spatial plan. And once we've got that spatial plan landed and we know what our height restrictions are going to be, that then opens up all the options on high level design.
The only amendment may be that if funding was made available in the 25-26 year from NZTA, it might be able to advance the road in this current financial year. I wouldn't want to preclude that. It may come up.
We can still have that, but I think it's that planning piece that we need to get right first that then enables everything else. Because if the height limit remains 10 metres, you may as well do nothing.
And then you go back to the town.
Can I just check, this is probably going to be a little bit tactical here, but just around the high level concept is for us to be able to do horizontal infrastructure, I think we're going to have to understand an element of what we might need where. So like if we want, you know, say we wanted to enable a 200-room hotel, we're probably going to need to know the types of horizontal infrastructure we might need. So
It's my expectation that that would come back where you've written a proof that a shortlisted set of options. I would like to see the shortlisted set of options that we're going to put forward in the long-term plan, which might include money to determine what horizontal infrastructure is required where. We need our people to be able to pick what they want to progress, because otherwise we're going to go out with a monumental rates rise in a long-term plan year, and we really going to struggle with that.
So without the high level concepts, can you determine where your high?
it sounds like that's what they're the options that we bring back.
Yeah.
To give.
And then determine where your horizontal infrastructure.
For you to look at, yeah. So I think we've covered both things off with that.
So can I just say, resolution D says recommends council that staff investigate and cost road realignments. We've presumably already done that, have we? Because we've got a design. So presumably we've got a cost.
That's the previous one. That's the previous paper.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's the community.
Yeah.
board.
It's gone to 48.
48.
Sorry. beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Right.
The timing of it is like with the road funding and getting it into LTP, that's why it's backwards, purely because it didn't, if we waited for the road, we'd miss the LTP. So that's the only reason that it's not ideal to be this way round, but that's
Right.
why it is.
Right.
Because we don't, if we miss the funding for the road, and it makes everything different, but then we'll have missed everything because we're too late to LTP.
I've got former city councillor and deputy mayor on my shoulder when Neil Gillespie said at the time of another big project, said, I think we need to just pause and talk to our community because it's such a significant, and it needs to be got right. So that's where I'm.
But getting
And that's
that
what we're
into
doing
the
here.
LTP is that consultation. Like, I think that's the idea.
It's still a piece.
Next 3 years.
And the spatial plan will require extensive consultation.
Yeah, and the LTP piece is to enable that, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like,
that's
that's the whole
correct.
point of that, is to put it into a consultation document.
Consultations.
Yeah.
So
Do you want to put that up, Wayne, what you've got so far?
do we need to have any, obviously let's
Script out.
work, do we need to have a budget for that?
Yeah, it is.
Well, we've got
what we-
budget
And that's what we're
sites on the
talking
spatial
about.
plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that other stuff, is
The
that,
budget is for the long-term plan.
And that's got to include remediation of current mall as well.
It's all
isn't it?
part of it.
That's all
Yeah.
included in that, but it's not that we're just looking somewhere else now. That includes that remediation work and verandas and whatever else we're looking at.
As options, which
Yeah.
might be that people can choose more than one option.
Yeah.
Bit like a smorgasbord of options, perhaps.
Sounds
Maybe not
great.
that many, but yeah.
Valentine's.
Charcuterie board of options.
Yeah, that's probably better.
Charcuterie. Yeah, let's go high level. The toughest. Right, this is
C-
shorter.
No, so
We're going to rewrite C, aren't we? So,
So
Okay, so-
yep, C's been stripped out.
Yep.
And changed.
so we're just going to, before you. Approves the development
Yeah.
of options. Incorporating regional spatial planning, horizontal infrastructure for the inclusion in the 2027-37 long-term plan. Notes that. How do we want to word that so that we are enabling that road is to come forward?
Yeah, you'll get a report back anyway, I think, but.
Yeah. Note that this does not preclude the
Well, waiting-
ability to
waiting on-
progress a Murray Terrace realignment
Yeah.
if funding
Yeah.
is approved.
Yeah, waiting on funding options. Will trigger. Buried twice the size pipes you normally bury because it's like everything else.
So can I just add, just in terms of timeframes, essentially council needs to be in a pretty good position come this meeting as to content of the CD, consultation document, because then that gets written sort of September, October, circulated to you guys in November. It goes to audit after your in December. So probably just really from the team, do you think you'll be in a position to deliver on that resolution at the next meeting?
And so then perhaps the options, needs to be narrowed down to what, I mean, right now we're saying we're putting a focus on the regional spatial plan. That's what we want to advance that as a matter of priority, and we've heard from Anne, so we need to reinforce that. We want to progress with the road realignment if an opportunity presents itself. We'll have a paper in August that will fund that. I guess it's that next piece which is a challenge. So I guess is it then that actually what you're saying, and I'm just paraphrasing now, is we want to really give a good crack to the spatial plan because that's going to guide our thinking. We want to realign that road as best we know now, but we'll use the spatial planning work to inform further work on the CBD. So effectively, all we're doing is a spatial plan, a road realignment, and we're pausing everything else because in the reality between the 29th now and end of August, what we can work up and cost and fund is incredibly constrained. So
You've got 1 month and
that's right. So then if that's your intention through these resolutions to say, let's put out the spatial
I
plan.
think we need to be realistic about what can be achieved in a 3-year time of an LTP. If we are going out with public consultation on a spatial plan that covers all of Otago as well as our areas, realistically, how far through that process and implementing that plan are we going to be by the end of this long-term plan?
Absolutely.
We would love to progress it all and make it look amazing, but there are some realities to the time and to the money that we have spent.
A spatial plan specifically.
The regional spatial plan that will inform this.
Yeah.
The other thing is that what, and this is to Cheryl's point, and I think maybe Bob as well. What are we doing about, is there anything that needs to go into this in relation to the town centre itself at the moment? Because there is a piece in there that needs to be.
But our problem right now is we have a month to cost that. And so I don't want to say the bureaucracy can't crank faster, but if the reality is we can't cost and develop those options between now and then to meet the LTP timeline, then effectively the decisions you make today are saying, okay, we'll wait for the spatial plan to inform us to make a more informed decision around the CBD. Because we can't magically materialise this if we don't have it.
No, we can't, but you can, and that approves a shortlisted set of options to be reported back to confirm a preferred direction. I think there is the ability for you to have something in there that may be sitting in year 3, say, the regional plan has landed. Now we need to have some money set in year 3 to be doing those concept designs. Put it in as an option, and then our people can choose if they want to. Like we're going to have to break it into manageable chunks that tie to a specific figure, as opposed to we're going to need 6 million to progress this whole piece of work. If we break it down into smaller pieces of work, we can see how many we can get over the line in a long-term plan.
Yeah.
This might be some, like sleeping in.
That's what we were thinking, wasn't it? And the PSG, that's exactly what we're sort of thinking of. There is a lot of work that has to be done here, and the only reason we've been able to present the things that we have is because there's 17 years of tailed work that is sitting in files for us to present this to you today. And so getting that kind of clarity on we need something in, and there is a bit of work to do still, but I think just what you've surmised there is exactly where we've sort of landed as a steering group. You agree?
Yeah, you're on the money there. I just think we need to have perhaps, the direction needs to be more focused on where we go from here. Like we've got to keep this in the long-term plan and make it possible if we can have it with the spatial plan and whatever. We've got to go out public on it. We've got to talk to enterprise to see what their appetite is to put in there. Got to see what the locals' appetite is to have there. They'd like to see there and whatever. And we need to pull our fingers out and get it done.
In terms of any number of the team in for year 3, If it features in the consultation document, it does need to stand up to audit as well. So we need to get QEs or whatever system the team use. So it's got to be with our community a number. You know, pretty much that we, councils have been in trouble before when they do a project, let's put 25 million in and it doesn't, it's in 25 million likely interrogate this progress.
So for clarification, and that's where we're asking for the steer. What would you like us to focus on that we can put a number to them?
So back from the February 11th workshop, it was reasonably clear was the Northwest Precinct working with the private developers.
Yeah.
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 So is that why you're wanting direction on again now? Or waiting for the spatial plan and then carry that piece of work on?
No, so just because there's nothing in the LTP now.
Yeah.
Like what we need is, and I think we've sort of got it now, we need to present options in that August period. That'll be our sundown to go, okay, this is where council want us to focus in this next 3-year period to enable the Northwest Precinct, not forgetting the entire town centre. Is that's the simple lens that we've put over it. And so I guess putting together some of just that information paper that was circulated, overall concepts there, images on a page sort of thing, so we can get a bit of an idea, so we can come back and go, these are some of the costs to do drop-ins for the business community, to get back out to the community, to do all the things that we need to do during this long-term plan.
Some of that we will be doing in the spatial plan because we have to, all those interested groups are key to that.
Yeah.
Those resolutions back up. It needs to be planning lead.
Kristen, we shouldn't be
Full stop.
writing an audit if we're not sure of pricings, because that's our risk, right?
You just have to have some evidential base for it. So myself and Paul would be wholly in trouble if we sort of thought about, 20 million feels about right, because they asked for evidence based on for that, particularly the stuff in your consultation document, but we'll be asking evidence of how we got to those numbers. So that's just something that we need to be mindful of.
So in LTPs of the past, what has happened is we've had projects and ins and outs and whatever. And then all of a sudden you have the community come and they've got some great ideas. And that's our way of looking at that, is bearing in mind the budget, which I'm really conscious of, which is a main, a big part of it. Our community might come to us in relation to this, because some of the feedback that I've had from not necessarily property owners, but business operators in the mall, is that they don't feel like they've been part of that process. So the owners, yes, but not the the business operators. So we just need to make sure that there's a big piece in there, the planning piece. I keep harping on about the planning. It's clear.
We're informed that we've got to start somewhere, and to know what we want our spatial plan to look like is to know what we want our town centre to look like. So we've got to have a bit of an idea of where we're going, and this is that piece. And now we've got a good base to move forward and say, actually, our spatial plan needs to be bigger, because last time round it was 3 stories was enough. It's not now. We know where we're going. We know what we're looking at. That's what will inform where we go with the spatial plan. And then we look back, because we've enabled ourselves to do what we talked about now. So,
Whether there's an appetite for 6 stories.
yeah, that's getting a little bit too right down. So, right.
Can I ask, I was told once that there's no such thing as a dumb question, but I think I'm about to ask one. D there says, notes that it does not preclude the realignment of Murray Terrace if funding is approved.
I think we need to put
Partner funding.
the year.
So
The
Does not
question,
preclude the realigning of Murray Terrace within the 26-27 financial year, and funding is approved.
but the dumb question I was going to ask is, what if funding is not available from outside?
Then it will go into the NZT, it will go into the long-term plan program, and we will look for funding in the long term.
and we fully
Council
fund
could
it.
consider
Right,
in
we
the
fully
report
fund it, okay.
funding that whole.
It's unfunded development.
Pay for it.
We pay for it.
Yeah.
That was my
Do it.
question, can we just
Yeah, we can
shift
pay
it
for it.
somewhere else? Yeah.
So that is if funding is approved,
Yeah.
funding is not approved from an external party, that can come back to us and say, do we want to pay for it?
Do we need that funding from COPA
No,
in there? Does it
no,
need to
apparently
be?
we
Right,
take that out.
okay.
We're okay with that? Sweet. Right. Dare I ask, are there any other questions? We are wrapping this up. Comments? Good.
General R and M in the mall, paving, Rolling Stones, that's.
Well, that's what we're talking.
LTP, shortlist.
LTP, yeah, that's that.
Apparently don't be LTP.
Yeah, and there's an appetite for that, I think, for right. A to E, I am not reading them all out. We haven't got time. Can you read through them and tell me if anybody's got anything? We're all happy with them? All right, in that case, I am happy to move A to E. Is anybody second?
Yep.
All in favour? Any against? Carried. Thank you. Apologies for the timekeeping. It's your fault, not mine.
Right, I'll take the blame on that, Sarah.
Yeah, that's all right. We might skip ahead now.
And in the talking stick to given the.
Yeah. So we're now going to call forward, do you want to, can you cover that off in 2 minutes? Because I want to move to simplifying local government. So we can do your one, the plan change 23, because I know Anne's online and then she can go away. Is that right? And then we'll pull the things.
Absolutely.
Just clear with me. So this is page 86. If I can put that in my. We've got in, haven't we? Okay, and welcome QP.
Thank you. I'll take the report as read. So this is the ratification of the hearings panel decision for Plan Change 23, and that's to rezone approximately 5.6 hectares of land at the intersection of State Highway 8 and Smithfield Road. This originally came to council 30th October 2024 to resolve to accept the plan change for notification. Subsequently, the hearing was heard on the 24th of March. Plan change recommendation report was attached. This went through the standard process, and the hearings panel was made up of Gary Ray and Councillor Patterson and McPherson as well. Hand back for any questions.
Happy to move it.
Sarah's moving. Andrew second. All those in favour? Against? Carried.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, Anne.
Thank you.
We've gained back 4 minutes.
We are now going to call forward item number 9.12, simplifying local government head start application. Welcome, Saskia. We are on page, for those of you following along, 213.
Yeah, we'll take the paper as read. As you're all aware, the mayors have been really together a potential head start proposal for the Otago region. The region has previously received the analysis by the consulting firm Morrison Lowe that looked at various factors and options for the Otago region. As a consequence of that analysis, there was no sort of grouping that really, at this present point, stood out on the numbers, which we have discussed previously. So the mayors have been obviously having further conversation and have come up with a potential proposal to sign essentially a letter of intent in the middle of the start application to say that we are working collaboratively, we just need more time. This is what the paper in front of you presents. However, there is nothing to stop this council coming up with an alternative. There is an option 3 in there that you could still, even though this is a proposal, this signing the letter, that you could come up with something else that you thought was in Central Otago's council's best interests. So that's just all we have to say. So we'll hand it over to Madam Mayor.
You. My thinking on this over the last 2.5 months has probably done 360 3 or 4 times as to what might be the best fit for Central Otago District and our people. And I think that's probably been the same for many of you. The conversations that we have had at an Otago-wide level as mayors in the Otago Mayoral Forum space have been collaborative, they've been collegial, they've been open-minded, They have been cognizant of different challenges that each of us has faced. And then they have also seen the exit of Waitaki as they look at the amalgamation proposal up there, but still remain part of the conversations to understand what their neighbours do. I think probably Saskia hit the nail on the head where we went to our community with a wide survey that was quite well responded to, but as I've noted in the past, those numbers mean not every person who works for a council in Otago submitted. If we can't even get all of the people who work here at a council in Otago to submit on that, the next thing. We've held public meetings, some have been better attended than others. We held an online session that was attended by myself, Wayne, Sarah, and I think one member of our local media. It's really hard to get people engaged and interested in what comes next. And I think Mark Jessup hit the nail on the head this morning when he noted that when it applies and is so easily applicable to a community, they show out on force. It's that hyper local interest. Things that happen to me in my community, I want to know about. And some of this just feels a bit too hard and a bit too high level. So that's where it's going to be on us to put forward a proposal that can then A, potentially go to the government, and B, go to our people with some detail. And that's probably the thing I've heard most talking to our communities. Where's the detail? That's what they want to know. We went to Morrison Lowe and asked for some financial details, and it came back and kind of all of the options, including in all of Otago Unitary, are effectively within the margin of error. There is no magic bullet that's going to be, panacea that means that the people of Otago are going to pay less rates. And Martin pointed this out right at the very start when he said, if you think that this is going to mean a reduced rates bill, you are wrong. But there are options that could mean more efficient services, better local voice, more engagement from our communities for those hyper-local things that interest them, and efficiencies in the background that might mean that your rates aren't increasing at the same pace we've seen over the last 2 years. Because we have said at this table that is not sustainable, and we don't want that for the future of Central Otago. So you will have seen, because I've sent out the maps to you, that there is a potential other option that has been put forward initially through some discussions with the Clutha District. That there is maybe an enthusiasm for a unitary council that covers Central Otago, Clutha District and Queenstown Lakes District, encompassing the entirety of the Clutha Mata'o River catchment. There are a lot of similarities between our communities. There are challenges that we've heard loud and clear, especially around debt loadings. There are also factors to consider, like the fact that those three councils are all moving our services, which is a big indicator of our debts, to a water CCO as of 1 July next year. And that will move a substantial amount of debt off all of our balance sheets and into a CCO. So I think that that is a conversation that is worth having at this table. What do we want to protect? What do we want to maximise? What do we want our opportunities to look like? Because it's all well and good to say this is being driven by central government and we want to tell them to get stuff and we're just going to go it alone, because we've said many years now that we can't keep going like this alone under the same model that was put together in 1989. So I'm interested to hear, and I will get to the point where I go around the table, but I'm interested to hear if anybody has got any questions about the Head Start proposal or suggestions on what it could look like for Central Otago. That may or may not be following the proposal that's before us, which is option one, which is signing a letter saying we're going to keep working together.
The big thing is, if we don't get on the bus, we don't get on the bus. This isn't us saying we're 100% doing what we think we are right now, because it might change. Like you say, it's changed a lot for all of us over the thinking period. But if we say no thanks and the doors close, don't have the chance to get back on it. So keeping that door open with an off ramp, as we did with water, is the only real way forward. My opinion. I don't think there is a backstop isn't where we want to be, so we have to have an option to move forward.
The thing is, though, if we actually get on the bus, there's a good chance we might get kicked off it.
Yeah, well, we might, because we might. But if you're not on in the first place, you can't even
Yeah.
take your seat, so.
Yeah, I just,
Carol,
oh, sorry.
What are the possibilities if you don't, if you endorse the letter saying, well, we haven't actually made up our mind, we're still working towards it? What are the possibilities that the government will just say, well, you had your chance, that's it, we'll set your boundaries and you do as you're told?
I would think that that is quite a high likelihood. Depends on who you talk to at the DIA, which is now called something else, MCERT. And they are only officials that can give advice on behalf of the minister. And we did have one member of staff from the DIA suggest that if you're not in a position to put forward a Head Start proposal, yes, you could have a go at putting in a letter saying we're still working. But we've had another official last week who came to our mayoral forum who very clearly said the direction from the minister is you are in the Head Start or you are in the backstop. And knowing Minister Bishop and what he, the types of things he's been saying about this, he has been crystal clear in all of his communication thus far. You have two options. They are Head Start or it is the backstop. And there's been no insinuation at all from him that he's going to soften and have a middle ground and say, oh, you can have a wee bit more time, or yes, keep working, you're doing well. So that I think is the risk for us if we were to say, we're just going to sign a letter saying we're going to carry on working together.
I just wanted to say for those listening online and what gets reported through the media, and I think all of us around the table have done this. We've looked at the feedback, we've had our discussions out in the community, and we've heard the common themes. And whilst some of that might be saying, sit on your hands, do nothing, that whole backstop, the loss of flexibility, the loss of our ability to make decisions, to take a certain path could really be gone. So whilst we might, I'm not saying we haven't agreed on this yet, whilst we might not do that, by staying on the bus, using Sarah's analogy earlier on, it keeps us in the game, it keeps us being able to control our future, have a say. And what we might put forward today might not be what it looks like at the end, but it might let us stay in the game and keep having a bit of direction. And I think a really, really big part of this is, and I'll use the word the sell, but it's the communication out to the community, out to the ratepayers. We have to be really cognizant of that, of whatever approach we take today, of really communicating that and explaining why.
I think having the ability to have some detail behind the why, which is not something that we have been able to provide up until now in that really short time frame, and having an explanation around, in particular, debt loading and people's worries about what would happen to debt and who would be responsible for debt, and actually have that in the option that then is coming out of feedback and consultation with the community, so that it's there in black and white. Well, what would you do about the debt next door? We would do this, and this is what we would be voting on.
Sorry,
just to finish off, a big theme was losing a local identity, local voice. And if we fell back on the backstop, it could be complete loss of local voice. Whereas staying on the bus, staying in the game, lets us still have a voice. The voice might look different, different level of representation, whatever it is, but we still have that local voice, that local identity represented. Sorry, Bob.
I was just going to say, I think a lot of the feedback that I've heard is that they don't specifically want to inherit debt from other regions, and obviously, if water is moved away, part of that debt will be removed, but there'll still be debt there. And I'm encouraged by reading this report from Morrison Lowe, and they said that it's likely that for several years, I would think, there's going to be sort of targeted rates and so on, which obviously will help to alleviate people's fears about that. So I'm sort of encouraged by that. I'm also a little bit nervous about the possibility of losing some of the assets that we have, like the Cromwell Endowment land, for example, because if we get absorbed in someone else is going to actually come along and say, well, this is a valuable asset and we want a part of it. That's where I stand. I think there is a little bit of nervousness about it. But on the whole, I think, some of the advantages that we would get from taking up, for example, with Queenstown Lakes, in terms of, joint work on health services, joint work on transport and that kind of thing, would actually work pretty well in our favour.
I think whilst we're on the subject and we've called it getting on the bus, who in their right mind gets on a bus without knowing where it's going?
Oh, they're the best bus trips, Charlie, come on.
You two in the backseat.
It's very valid, Charlie. It is. It
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
But you can, the things you can get off, and that's it, like, it's a risk, but you can get off. If you don't get on in the first place, we're never going to know.
How do you
And
know
what
that?
we've got now isn't working. We all know that. We're going to be told where we end up. Do you want to have the chance to be on it and get off? Or do you want to be told where we end up?
To use the bus analogy, backstop's like
I
getting
love
on the
it.
bus blind and you can't get off as well, so,
Bounding back. Right, this is good.
Yeah, so,
If it was me, I would wait for the next bus.
yeah, well, true, but
I want to see us stop in the bus. I want to see our providing
At the end of the day,
from Charlie.
Head Start, we know we get a say in determining our future, and backstop is a pretty big gamble we will be taking. And one thing's for certain, we don't know anything about it, but we'll have less of a say. And look, I just think I think we've got to fire our shot here. My thinking's gone 360. I sort of thought, wait it out, see where it lands. I think it was put to me that this is inevitable. We will not outrun this.
Yeah.
So if we sit here thinking we're fine on our merry way, and that's the tough part for us, is because in some respects, Central Otago would be fine on its own when you compare us to our neighbours. But the reality is, this is coming. We can't outrun it. We took an oath of office to make decisions in the best interest of Central Otago. My view is that if we don't do anything today, we aren't honouring that, because we're taking a huge gamble on the future of this district. And I think we're better to be on the bus, and I think seizing the initiative and driving it exactly where we want to take it. The things that are important to us is protecting the ratepayer, so they know where it's off for Central Otago, local democracy, strong local representation, and I think a provincial rural unitary authority and company, when throwing the door open to parts of the Tyree catchment that aren't in Central Otago currently, or Pluto, is the strongest way forward. And while I'm at it, I've seen some circulation on CCO structures. I'm not a fan of that. This has got to be democracy at the next step as well. And democracy is people voting for their owners and representatives on these organisations. CCOs, is not that.
Well done, Curtis. I've been just thinking of some Stewisms for this. I haven't got any, but I just think that you look at that map and when all those oldies came in the 1860s and 1880s to form the future of Otago, and I've probably got it closer in earlier times. I'm surprised Charlie didn't jump on that as well. As a lot of them made their way into the Queenstown, Wanaka districts to set up their families in future, mainly for gold. And I go back to my grandfather's postmaster as a young kid on the Earnslaw, dropping all the mail off, and I drove down that way the other day, and that was where Otago founded in the Dunedins. We went through there, and we were all Otago, and you had a race to get to the top end and the rivers, and the same. My grandmother's family was put the road into the Nevis to get gold and livestock and that in. So we're all being layered into this community, and some have come into it a lot later than we have. I think, they came for gold, for farming, for rabbits, to set up their lives for the future, and we're here now. And we're probably the council that's going to fulfil their dream that they wanted us to do. But we do get a bit, territorial. And we looked at the growth of Queenstown and Wanaka, and maybe it's their problem as all these problems come, but it's also lifted the whole community the whole way. We could potentially have 3 international airports. We talk about gold mines, we talk about towns growing, and the Teviot was gold and fruit and horticulture. So we're actually all growing together. And some people just don't like how it's growing. But I think we've got a massive opportunity now to set a mark in the sand and take these 3 on. I think we take on Luther, we take on Queenstown. Imagine how great if we took the values we've got in our communities and make sure we protect it over the whole umbrella approach, we can make this one of the greatest regions in anywhere. We've got a very good councils everywhere else. Sure, there's going to be churn, but I think we've got only one option to make it right for the future. And I think, you know, we're better off having the dogs and letting open the gate, let the dogs out, and chasing the rabbit than stand there watch the rabbit run over the hill and do nothing. So I'm all in for we go in first. We put the boots on and we do the mahi. We put this peg in the sand, like the old fellas did. We throw a pack over the back and then we start making some rules and some boundaries and invite some good places in, you know. And I do think that you look at that map of Panay there, was it with the Kakanui? That's our river catchment. That's our mountain range. The Kakanuis run into the Hawkins, run into Belinda's, and that's Wanaka. So I think we open a massive rural unitary authority. We are looking for the next 100 years. Imagine going to government with the size of that, the rural unitary authority. I mean, Queenstown's going to have issues the size of it, and what happens there? Attach our debt to ourselves so people don't get disadvantaged. I reckon we could be a massive force in the next 100 years in this area, which is going to have some of the greatest landscape, tourism, farming, agriculture, viticulture, horticulture, venture tourism. We're going to be a part of starting it. I reckon it's pretty cool.
But at the end of the day, we don't actually fully understand what government, how they're going to figure it all together, do we?
Well,
But,
because they don't.
but we've got to make
We've got
sure
to
that
fire our best shot.
we've got to govern ourselves for a start, because I don't think they know.
And what we do might inform how they,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
if we're strong enough, that might be an acceptance rather than telling us what to do.
We've got a wheelbarrow,
And where we say what
We
happens.
say rather than be told.
we've got a wheelbarrow full of
It's a proposal.
gold pans and shovels and picks. We've got a fair chance we're going to start mining, digging the hole first with the foundations. We sit back and wait for someone else in Wellington to give us decision where our boundaries will be, we'll have no say.
Not only that, we have no say on representation, things that matter to us about protecting the ratepayers from other people's debt, like the ball's out of our court, the ball's the next.
Actually, what Nathan has just said is actually, I think, correct. It's a proposal.
That may not be accepted.
It's a proposal.
Be in a position actually to make that proposal though? I mean, there's only 2 weeks to go. Are we in a situation where we can actually make a proposal that makes sense?
Do you want me to,
Yes, we are.
do you want me to lead it?
So the Head Start proposal doesn't require a business case or a feasibility study. It requires us to outline, and I'll put some potential recommendations up in a minute to talk through. But yes, there is time frame to.
Like a lot of people around the table, I've flip-flopped all over the place with this thing. It has not been smooth sailing. I've gone from completely one side completely to the other and back again multiple times based on things that I've heard, based on reading, based on talking to people. And the talking to people for me has been probably my most insightful part. Everybody that I've spoken to has voiced an opinion based on emotion, based on things that they hear on social media or in the paper. And unfortunately, those things that those people have heard have genuinely been the things that have been a negative. And I'm not saying these things are good. For example, everyone's upset with Queenstown for the, excuse my language, shit in the river, right? That's something that everyone is upset by. That's a real personal reaction. And we have quite strong views around this table about that. So that's something that people are upset about. Likewise, in relation, and I'm calling it out because everyone knows who we're talking about. This is, for me, I need to be open in relation to this. I've had a lot of people say, we don't want to go with Dunedin because at the moment, they're not very functional. Right, that's fine. That's people's opinions of what they've heard. That's an emotional response. But both of those places do offer a whole lot of other things. If you take out the emotional response, there's a whole lot of really good things about both of those places. So I've tried to keep everything as neutral as I possibly can. I think that however we want to look at it, I think that the ability for us to create bespoke legislation and design our own set of rules is something we cannot ever get back. That's quite exciting for me. That means ring fencing. These are all the nitty gritty things that we don't need to do when we go initially in. So that bespoke design, it gives us a massive strength. It gives our neighbouring councils strengths as well, because they'll have the same concerns potentially about something that we do here. You know, that everyone's got their own thing. The other thing is, and Stu mentioned this, and I am biased, being from a rural background, but for me, our strength is the fact that we are rural. We're a really strong community. We've got strong communities in our associated neighbours, and that is something that is not shared across the rest of New Zealand. I had someone say to me the other day that they think that they were talking about Omakau, so I'm just going to call out Omakau here. They said they thought Omakau was the last place on earth that still had a community feel. And for me, I would say that applies to all of Central Otago. So I think that's our strength. We need to capitalise on our rural base. I think at the moment, the big thing for me is that, and this was just mentioned before, Saskia, you might be able to answer this, staff resourcing to put a 1 or 2 page plan that encompasses that. You've got the staff resourcing to run with that?
Yes, Alex and I, in terms of what you need to do for next, what essentially would be next Friday, is there's guidelines, but it's very, very high level. So it'd be really the principal's approach. And just further to Bob's questions, under the guideline, and in order to be accepted into the Head Start, you do need to have a majority. So if council was of the mind to do this today, it would require the support of either Clutha or Queenstown in order to get past that gateway, which would obviously need to be worked through. But in terms of staff resourcing to get something ready for the mayors, the joint mayors of those councils to be comfortable with, yes, we do.
And it's the majority of the territorial authorities. It doesn't have to be all. So 2 could put in a submission to include a third.
So when are they meeting next?
Clutha meets tomorrow.
Clutha meeting tomorrow, Queenstown Lakes meet on Monday.
And the timeline process is in September, the government will determine who they're going to advance on the Head Start. Likely that list will be short because just the bandwidth to do that. And then they have until March to finalise their proposition. So, and then the government will go into writing the legislation. But the legislation will cover the Head Start and it'll cover the backstop. And so the backstop will be, as you have said, here is the backstop option. And it'll be stated to you.
Can I ask another question in relation to, and Tony, you might come from you guys, that we put something out. I mean, it's a pretty broad proposal at this stage. We get the acceptance from government to step to the next level. Is government committing, from what you understand so far, to working with us to create stuff that we need, or are we just getting left out? Oh yeah, you guys, yes, it's a yes, but you guys do it all yourself, or are we going to be supported in that?
My understanding is that it includes support.
Okay.
That government will support those Head Start proposals.
Yeah.
To work through to the next step.
And I guess the next thing is that we leave the door open to some of those areas that are that may be a split boundary. For me, I think that's a really important part, and that, especially from a rural sense, if there are certain areas that want to stay within a larger rural authority.
In a catchment sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a huge.
So the question, yeah, well, no, I think that's important for a catchment purpose. If the government aren't happy with our position, then they mandate someone else to come with us as well.
They have said at this point that they are not interested in directing councils to be a part of something. But kind of there's also not a lot of clarity and details.
Well, the DIA said here a long time ago and said they were not talking about amalgamation, and now we're talking about it by stealth.
But the backstop is the mandated option.
Yeah, but when they said 6 months ago, a year ago, that wasn't going to be doing that. We're doing regional deals and there's discussion. So I mean, I guess, you know.
I think one of the things that might come up with 3 councils that we're talking about, and the recognition that it requires at least one other council to join us in a joint proposal, and ideally 2 other councils, is that if I was in Queenstown Lakes, I might say I've got nothing in common with Clutha, and vice versa. Commonality.
Yeah.
We are the ones that are most like Queenstown and most like Clutha. And I think that's the thread that ties the 3 together as you flow down the river outside, that we have a lot in common with the primary industries, the working rural towns of Clutha district. And we have parts of our community that are most aligned to the hustle bustle, the tourism, the the tech and the space sector of Queenstown Lakes.
And to be fair, in the time I've been on the community board and council, Queenstown has changed a lot in the last 20 years. It wasn't the Queenstown it was 20 years ago if we had this conversation 20 years ago. You could get across the quarter. They didn't even have McDonald's in those days.
4 hours, and we might put if you can put up the resolutions, please, Wayne, that I have drafted, that we will then have a look at and see if you think that that is a right fit. Is the big thing about a proposal that I would be keen on is having a community council or similar function that can rate its ratepayers. So that if the people of Central Otago or the people of our wards or whatever mechanism we end up flowing into say, we want this and we are willing to pay for it, that's actually a capability of the entity, because that is probably the one thing that Auckland boards missed out on in the great super city, was that it has to come from Mayor Wayne and his council.
Sure, as they're contingent, like. You're here, or I here.
Yeah.
Anything nationwide.
Yeah.
Hey, just more the commentary before we go on. I think we want to be in charge of a destiny. I know there's a lot of unknown in this, but I don't see a change. Change is going to happen. And from being outside the district and coming back in, I'm not as parochial as we don't want to be introspective. That was some of the commentary. We don't want to be with Queenstown. Well, we are impacted by them anyway. We are one. Otago is stronger together. There's our individual units. And we're worried about urban and rural. New Zealand's going to become more urban, so we will lose our voice because we are more rural. We've got to keep our place there, and it's a hard one when we all want to make sure we keep our voice, but our voice has been quiet in almost most places we are in New Zealand. So that's going together is going to help get us that. It's not about efficiency, it's about engagement, progress in unison. I think that's the strength of it. We put our case forward, we do it as best we can, and then we have to unfortunately wait and see what comes back, but that's life. So yeah, I think go as big as we can and go as hard as we can.
Dogs out.
Yep. See what they come back with.
Low report, option 1A, where the boundaries were drawn, like all the different options of who you take and who you don't. There's 1A's got the proposed boundary that goes, that was including Waitaki, which we know isn't, but it's got basically half of Dunedin City Council, which I expect is that rural.
Yeah.
Where is that, as far as it's got, is that Morrison Low drawing some red lines on a map, or is there any?
So no, there is a map, and I'll see if.
Because that kind of fits in with what was that, with taking, like realigning boundaries is probably just as big a conversation as the ones that we're in at the moment, just because the boundaries for us are.
What were your words?
Just like you said.
Communities of interest.
Communities of interest, and that's really.
But that red line that shows a proposed boundary in option 1A is kind of that, in my mind, as to, you take Dunedin City out and they operate independently. You take Waitaki out, so they're not interested, but that.
It's catchments and communities of interest. All
Yeah.
You pull up those resolutions, Wayne, and we can talk through those.
Sorry, Rivet.
But that's like,
Sorry?
Has that been
Doing
other than saying,
They
that's
come out of
included
the
as well.
resolutions. So these maps have been prepared. They are based on the catchment.
That includes
So
the
it's a GIS catchment map.
Yeah.
The different varieties. One of the resolutions that we have talked about. So proposed resolutions for those joining online. Direct staff to prepare a Head Start proposal based on the following parameters. A unitary council comprising the full areas of Central Otago District Council, Clutha District Council and Queenstown Lakes District Council. recognition that an option may exist for the Waihemo ward of Waitaki district and the rural areas of Dunedin City, including Middlemarch and the Taieri catchment, to be incorporated into the proposed unit 3. Now, that is a big thing to be putting out there, because that is talking about parts of other councils that may or may not want to come with us. And the reason why I think it should be in that is because I think it's important that those communities have their say. So Waihemo have already, they are part of Waitaki, they are going north. But Waitaki have also said that it would be an option for part of their district if they actually wanted to have that on the table, that they went somewhere else, that be a mechanism that they could explore. So if they're saying we're interested in looking at it, I think it's important that we say we're interested in having you if that was the way you wanted to come. And I think that's the same part for the likes of some of the hinterland, I guess, of Dunedin City, where you're talking about Middlemarch and Hyde and some of those other places who might have more of an affinity with a rural area. The place where it would get tricky is where the Taieri catchment actually does include Mosgiel. And I think that realistically you would say Mosgiel are kind of part of Dunedin City, and they probably feel like they are part of Dunedin City. So where you would put a boundary, if that area was interested in coming with a rural authority, I think is something that would need quite a lot more work, including cross-collaboration work with Dunedin City about what they wanted, because at the moment that is part of their area. And they might want to just focus on city things, or they might want to retain their rural areas and work more collaboratively. So I think that leaves the door open for those areas that might feel like they're in the wrong place to move, and for the areas that feel like they're in the right place to stay.
I think the big things we're moving on from the last time this is done, and those boundaries are drawn at that point. The boundaries don't necessarily reflect what's happened and developed since then, so they need to be in parallel. And also doing the boundaries where it looks right. That's sensible here.
Sorry.
I think that so talking about a Head Start proposal, that community councils with rating powers being identified as the primary mechanism for retaining local representation and community voice. That might be on the basis of there is a community council that covers all of Central Otago, or it might be on the basis of it is a community council that covers each of our wards. And that could be worked through as well. Martin.
Let's add to that.
So that you get to me answer.
That one of the biggest problems that we're facing is our only income stream available to us is basically basic. And now this government's pushing this amalgamation as a cost saving to ratepayers, which we now are pretty confident that it's not going to be that case. Is there any way we can, through this process, actually start to highlight that fact that we need to actually explore other income means? If this is to be successful, then the Crown needs to partner with local government to ensure the ongoing viability, because there's nothing that I'm seeing which in any of this is addressing the problems that we've got single the income stream, and we need to, it's big tax or fuel tax or whatever.
I think there's absolutely a case that you could make if you get selected to that detailed design work of here's the things that we're going to lift up to a regional unitary function. Here's the things that would be better to be delivered at a national scale, and identify the areas where we could deliver better for the government. If they wanted to give us some of the money that they currently allocate to this area, and we run something that is more appropriate at a local level.
Because the government's citing things like it uses Singapore as an example all the time, and we like to go back to David Longie's comment years ago about New Zealand being the Switzerland of the South Pacific. So we look at Norwegian, that area. I mean, there's a huge amount of taxpayers' money which central government takes is then distributed back down to local government, and that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in this with EGTA. It's about the only area we do actually get collective money coming back this way. And I think if we're going to buy into this, this is an opportunity for that voice to be heard. We need alternative revenue apart from rates.
And
the next discussion on regional deals later on does cover some of those points specifically. Yeah, but Can it be included in this too?
I think it would be included in part of the next detailed design. The trouble at the moment is that a really great campaign has been run against local government. And if you said to the taxpayer, do you like to tell the government that they should be giving more money to local councils to run services? I think that there would be a resounding thank you. So this is our opportunity to prove how we can competently provide for our communities.
I'm happy for us to stay on the bus. I'm happy for collectively for a letter to be written to see if we put our table to see if we can get an extension, because I think we have an advantage that we've done such a good job with Three Waters that we may have some weight as parties involved in the CCO around Three Waters to say, look, sometime we could probably come up with something collectively which we all agree to.
The next, sorry, Wayne, they keep disappearing off the screen. The next resolution was tied into that because it is, if you are part of this, then there is the opportunity to explore bespoke legislation. And bespoke legislation is the term that the government has used. And we note that that be included in the proposal framework. So that probably does cover off some of the stuff that you're talking about, Marty, with potentially coming from.
Bespoke legislation, does that include representation as well?
Well, it could be quite open, bespoke legislation. The ability to further develop and refine options relating to the proposed Unit 3 authority prior to undertaking public consultation. And that's where we say, here is the detail behind what we are asking you to consider. And also the inclusion of review and or an exit mechanism should future circumstances warrant reconsideration of the arrangement. And that ties into our ability to get off the bus if it
Does that, like the inclusion of review and or exit? A review isn't an exit. But are we shooting ourselves in the foot that we can't get off? We're just asking to review it. Like,
we can say review and
can we just leave it as an
and exit mechanisms?
We want to be quite clear that if it doesn't suit us, we're walking away. But
Well,
we don't
it
get tied
will
up
be-
in our.
So what will be exiting to the backstop?
No, we can't walk away because we just end up falling into the backstop.
If you're going to take that, you don't end it now.
The thing, if you exit, if you're in the Head Start process and then for whatever reason you exit, you are saying we will take the backstop
Yeah.
back. But it might be once you know what the backstop actually is.
This is the problem we've all got. And our community has too, because we don't have any details.
But this way we go one way and we can go the other if we take the or out.
Foot in each camp.
Yeah, we've got the option to go back if it looks
That's
better
the
now.
critical thing. Having a boot in each camp, this stage. Means that we have got,
We've got two boots in this camp at the moment if we make the rules.
it's a legal record.
Notes that the draft proposal will be circulated to councillors for review once prepared, because we do only have 10 days now, whatever it is. Notes that the submission of the proposal will require the agreement and joint participation of Clutha District Council and or Queenstown Lakes District
If
Council.
that and or.
You need one other.
And,
partner.
no, but it's only and up the top. Oh, no, sorry.
Can you get the or out?
And then authorises me to sign the proposal on behalf of the Central Otago District Council for submission by the deadline. And in the event that neither of those councils want to join us, that you authorise me to sign the joint letter of intent that is attached to the.
I think, you know.
Before we go to the next part.
Hang on, sorry. So are you saying if you want all three of them, otherwise you're signing the letter because that.
No, just two of us.
Another council.
And then.
Just one.
Partnership, it's not a three-way.
We need at least one vote.
Yeah, no, I know that. Yeah. It's just the word.
So
Can you take the or out of that last bullet
Just a
point?
duo, not a three-way, you know.
Review and exit mechanisms,
oh yeah, did you pick that up one?
last bullet.
So it's not and or, it's just and.
Thank you.
So on that basis, I'm happy to move those recommendations. So Sarah's happy to second them. Do we want to have any debate on these as our next step forward?
I just feel like we got on a bus and Martin's got 1 foot on one bus and 1 foot on another bus going in two opposite directions.
Splits then.
Yeah.
We've got to, a bloody good head start for ourselves that we are a really solid table. And I think we need to be convinced that we're all getting on the bus together and nobody's missed the party in the first place. Like, we need to be.
The backstop is amalgamation of some form. We just don't.
It's a gamble that won't serve our communities well.
Yeah.
So the backstop it's not going to stay like it is. It's going to be some level of amalgamation.
The backstop could actually be the same result if we can do it.
But we've got
we're
the
actually
option
losing
to
the
do
ability
that.
to have say in how we want to best refine our communities.
But that last bullet point gives us the option to do that if it looks
Right,
better in the end. But if we don't know what it is, why the hell would we go into something that we know is the second best option? Be told. We're sort of, like you say, the CCO for orders, we've done a good job. There's a lot of confidence in us to do the right thing from our communities from above. Build on that. And if it doesn't work out, say, all right, we've changed our mind. But
You don't know once you get on that bus that you can get off it.
well, that's what you said. You do. That's the whole point of that last bullet point. It does.
You'll be getting off
Review an
to go,
exit mechanism.
you'll be getting off at the stop that you're waiting at, which is the backstop. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So we'll do a lap around the block and we'll pull up and go, we'll hop off and go, oh, should have been waiting for you.
For the drinks, that's fine.
Does anybody want to make any comments or any observations about the fact that there is a council missing from that proposal? That it is Dunedin City, about why we might not be interested in having that conversation in terms of all of Otago at this point in time.
It's communities of interest and catchments. And then for me, the Head Start, part of it's those groups that we've signalled we want to go with, but it's the other thing underneath it where we get to determine what the future is in terms of local representation with the community councils. And like I've had conversation with you in the past about it, like it doesn't, like the part of it's who you go with and who's combining, but the most important part is what it looks like at the next step for local representation, protecting the Central Otago Ratepayer, debt ring fencing, all that. So yeah, in respect to Dunedin, not a community of interest with Central Otago. And I fear that if you were with them, you would lose that local representation that we will essentially trying to protect with the rural provincial unitary. So yeah, that's my piece on that.
I've had two people, one is extremely elderly and the other is older than myself. Basically saying, well, you should take Dunedin as well. Purely because that's where the whole Otago hinterland started from, and all your businesses and all your infrastructure, all your universities, all your schools, all your growth started in Dunedin and moved inland. And
That's the key. It's moved.
yeah, it has. Okay, I get that. And the other person said, let Dunedin have its points of interest, but it still needs to be governed well. And if we're talking about what we're doing, we are going to be a part of a governance structure, how we write a structure, which could make a massive difference to Dunedin and to Queenstown and to Buccleuch and to Central Otago. So in a roundabout way, if they, and that's the point I made, if they do not wish to join, or if the door's not open for them to join, there could well be encouragement from the government to say, well, we could only got one little tick. And I just think we've got to be very careful. Central Otago was founded on the value of the knowledge and the wealth, and then you've got universities and stuff. They wanted to move this way, but it's still a massive big part of it. Still got massive problems in Dunedin, sea level rise, South Dunedin, and all that stuff. So to be fair, they'll probably be feeling a bit left out, sort of being left out. But I know a lot of people in our community, it was where, well, you live in Cromwell or you might live here, the attention probably stayed here. But for a lot of the other parts, you might take with Miller's Flat, a lot of the schools and the education was a big part of Dunedin was a big part of Central Otago. And I guess they're interested in coming with the government say you need someone else to go with. I don't know.
I think there's nothing in this proposal that doesn't recognise the ability for an inland authority that is unitary to also provide services to another unitary. Yeah. And there is service sharing between two unitaries, and Nelson City and Tasman are an example where they share functions that are common across both, but they actually, Nelson worries about city and Tasman worries about the rural. It's not perfect, but it is a mechanism that could work. So
yeah, I just think I've got it in the back of my mind is like in our corner, especially, we have more affiliation with Dunedin than we ever would have with Wanaka from It's changing. Admittedly, the whole thing is changing because the movement of people is coming this
I've
way.
changed my mind about these boundaries actually.
But I mean, so a lot of the people who you got to convince are living in those parts. So that's
It
part of
doesn't
the stuff.
preclude it completely. This
No,
is a
no,
work in
no.
progress. We say this is the best fit, but
Yeah.
it might be the next stage we go, actually, Dunedin, yeah, go on. I'm not
Because
saying.
over the top of that, there's a
Just-
unitary authority that's got to run
Yeah.
the stuff into Dunedin. Effectively.
All right, Bob,
I
and
was
then
just
we'll-
going to say, I totally agree with what Curtis has said, but I think it's very interesting that nobody has actually mentioned Dunedin around this table in this discussion.
Queenstown's enough to deal with. We don't have.
Target, I mean, target.
I think he said me, didn't he?
You said
on
fairness.
that basis, I think we've reached the end of the chat. We've had it moved and seconded. All those in favour? Against? Charlie, do you want it noted, Charlie?
Yep.
Carried. Thank you.
We'll pick you up on the bus though, Charlie. We're not like that.
We
Pick you up,
will
you ready?
take break to lunch now at 1:45. We will be back here at 1:15.
Could be gin and tonics at the backstop bus stop yet, so just.
Gonna be a booze bus. It's gonna have lights, LED.
As long as not the bloody